Hello everyone, this is Fadi and I'd like to welcome you back again to another live stream. This time we have a very special guest with us. That's David Wood. David, welcome and thank you for making time for us, brother.
How are you doing?
We're doing fine. We're doing fine. I don't know, of course, if people can see you or not, but at least I'm sure they will be able to hear you. And of course, Jay is with me here in studio. Now, Jay, we've been talking about the Qira'at, but there is another issue that happened recently, which you and I alluded to, that was back in June of this year, that have created and triggered a series of reactions and meltdowns, if you wish, by a number of known Muslim YouTubers, for instance, and other people as well who are a spokespersons for Islam and defenders of Islam. What is that issue?
I think the issue is something that started maybe a number of years ago, probably back in 2016, when Hatun Tash, who went around and collected all these Qur'ans from many different countries, we held them up at Speaker's Corner. We had held 26 of them up. Got almost 4 years to the date that this interview happened, and there was in the audience Mohammed Hijab himself. He was there, and he pulled away all the Muslims from stopping them seeing what we were showing and hearing what we were saying. And I'm assuming at that time he had a crisis of faith because he didn't know how to deal with those 26 Qur'ans. So 4 years later, almost to the date, he comes and he asks Yasir Qadhi, who should know how to deal with it. He asks them, what about these Qira'ats? What about these Ahrufs? And he said maybe not once, not more than once. And we're going to show a little clip of some of that interchange that went on June 8, 2020.
So I'll ask the fabulous crew if you guys can just show us that clip so people can get an idea about this particular issue that we've been talking about.
And what is your position in relation to preservation of Quran? Is, for example, Hafs an Asim, the way Hafs an Asim, do you see it as preserved, munazzal from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or do you not see that as munazzal? What's your position?
Jayid. Okay, so first and foremost, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna nahnu nazzal dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun. So we believe as a matter of theology, as a matter of aqeedah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved the Quran, no question about it. Now, as for the issue itself, every single student of knowledge knows, who studies ulum al-Quran, that the most difficult topics are ahruf and qira'at, and the concept of ahruf and the reality of ahruf, and the relationship of the Uthmanic Mus'haf with the ahruf, and the preservation of the ahruf. Is it 1, is it 3, is it 7? And the relationship of the qira'at to the ahruf. This is a topic that when you're the beginning student of knowledge, you're like, what is all of this going on here? When you go a little bit more, you learn to simply memorize what your teachers say and regurgitate it out. And you don't fully comprehend. When you do a deep dive is when things get very, very awkward and difficult. And this isn't new. This is from the time of the Sahaba. And this is not a joke, brothers and sisters. The issue of ahruf and qira'at caused confusion to somebody whom the Prophet ﷺ said, if you want to listen to the Quran directly, listen to Ubay. Ubay mentioned the crises that happened to me at Yale, my first year at Yale. It wasn't a crisis of faith, by the way, so it was very clear about this. People misinterpret it. It was a crisis of my understanding of knowledge. It was a crisis of what my teachers taught me. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, as somebody who memorized the Quran as a teenager, alhamdulillah, in my entire life, I have never doubted that the Quran is divine. You cannot doubt that. And you listen to it, you recite it, you just cannot doubt that. It's never been an issue. This was the issue. That the issue of ahruf and preservation and qira'at and relationships between them, these are very, very difficult issues. And the most advanced of our scholars, they're not quite fully certain how to solve all of the unanswered questions in there. These issues should only be discussed amongst people who know what the qira'at are and who understand some of these questions that are being raised. Traditional understandings of ahruf and qira'at cannot answer some of these pressing questions that are now being poked by our people outside of, by our academics, by their academics outside of the faith tradition. You see, in a Muslim environment, there's always some respect that we have for the Quran. We should. In a Muslim environment, we'll press a little bit and then we'll say, okay, khalas, sami'na wa ata'na. And that's great, alhamdulillah. When you go to academia, they don't have that red line. And they're going to just, the famous story of the emperor with no clothes. They're going to just point out, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's not true, and this and that. And they'll bring issues, which I'm not going to mention explicitly, that are true because they're in your own books. They're not inventing anything new. And it's very clear to you and to every single very advanced student and specialist that the standard narrative has holes in it. That's what I'm going to say. The standard narrative does not answer some very pressing questions. These are now well known within the Western Academy, that they're bringing forth issues. Their level of now knowledge is leaps and bounds above what it used to be, 100 years ago. And by and large, our ulama in the Eastern world are not aware, by and large, of what's going on in the Western side of things, and they're not answering those questions in a manner that it needs to be answered. And this is something all of us that are in academia fully acknowledge. We actually issues of the relationship, of the origins, of the ikhtilaf and all of this should only be discussed amongst those who are familiar with this science. It takes a while. I can't answer this question in a 20-minute interview, nor is it wise to do so, which is why I never brought this topic up myself. You will not find one lecture of mine about this issue. It should never be brought up in public. And I don't like these idiots, and they are idiots, wallahi. This is not something you discuss amongst the masses, ya akhi. It's not wise. You don't understand Qira'at, let it be. It's wise. That's why I never did it. It's the Western academics. These problems are now becoming mainstream. Twitter has so many accounts of Qur'an experts, and they're non-Muslims, and they're just saying things.
Let me ask you one question to try and make this as specific as possible. I think if I were to give you a blank mushaf, and tell you to write what is munazzal verbatim from Allah into that mushaf with no human interference, would you write something which corresponds?
It's not an easy answer. It's not an easy yes or no. It is enough for the Muslim to believe that the
I think
Quran
this should be an easy yes or no, though. Yasir Qadhi. I have to.
Okay, very, very well. So, Mohammed, after we get off this phone call, me and you, let's have a number of discussions. No problem. I'm very open with advanced students. But these issues should not... Look, it is Kalamullah, what is going to be written. It is Kalamullah. It is
what would you write?
You're pushing me. And I'm saying it's not hikmah to... Listen, I have a condition, like I said, everything I say is going to be factual. The Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah. The Qur'an is preserved. The Qur'an is known. The Qur'an is mutawatir. And alhamdulillah, all of the qira'at are the Qur'an. All of the qira'at are authentic. Alhamdulillah. Leave it at that, ya akhi. Beyond this, honestly, I have no problem. We'll have discussions or take my class. It is enough for the Muslim to know that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah that has been protected, and what we recite is the kalam of Allah. That is enough for the Muslim.
Yeah, but then if I could push back here just a little bit, I know this is, I don't want to make it uncomfortable, but it's just to make things clearer. Like if someone gave you a Qur'an which is empty in terms of there's nothing on it, and gave you a pen, obviously you have the Qur'an, but the question is, would what you write in that mushaf correspond with anything that we have in terms of the riwayat and the qira'at?
Who's going to bring a new Qur'an? A'udhu billah. We're going to have the Qur'an there, but which qira'ah will it be in? It'll be probably a mixture, right? It's not going to be necessarily... Fine. Yeah, okay, so let's leave it at that then. It's not going to be the exact Hafs and Asim bi riwayati fulan or Shu'ba.
But you would have something which you could say is sahih.
Fully recognizable by the average Muslim, obviously. Bizarre,
so when you write, so just to be clear, if you write down, it might not be a standard Hafs and Asim.
Exactly,
but what you write down is recognizable, and you believe that everything within that is munazzal min Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
100%, as Allah is my witness. 100%, that is the belief.
Folks, you've been watching this 7 painful minutes from that interview. Painful for Yasir Qadhi, painful probably today for Mohammed Hijab. Not so much painful for us. Unpack this for us. David, let's start with you. You've done a number of videos on this particular issue. First of all, anything surprised you about what Yasir Qadhi was saying, for instance?
Just the fact that he was not lying about it, because he has in the past, right? We have videos of Yasir Qadhi saying that there hasn't been a single letter's difference in any Quran manuscript since the time of Uthman. That's false. He knows it's false. and yet he was saying it anyway. And that's kind of the situation you have with Yasir Qadhi, was because of his position, he's been forced to live a kind of double life. When he's around scholars, he has to say one thing. When he's around popular level Muslims, he has to say something completely different. And then he's on a live stream with Mohammed Hijab, and well, guess what? Everyone's listening. He can't say, oh, there's no difference anywhere in the history of the manuscript tradition of the Quran. He would be exposed as a liar. But he can't say, of course, there's all kinds of variants and so on, because that will destroy the faith of Muslims. And so what's he going to say? Well, the only thing he could say is, hey, I don't want to discuss this. And that should have been enough, but Hijab kept pushing him. And so it's really, Muslims have undermined their own religion over the past decades by deciding to fight on this hill. Of all the hills they could have decided to fight on, they decided to fight on the hill of perfect preservation right down to the letter, and to make that their case. And now that it's being exposed, they're just scrambling, they're in panic mode, because there are so many Muslims. I've run into so many Muslims. That's their first line of argumentation in favor of their religion, is this miraculous preservation of the Quran. And these Muslims really believe that the evidence would support their claims. And now they're finding out that their own scholars have known this for a long time, that their own scholars have been aware of this, and therefore that their scholars have been lying to them. And then, of course, they come to their scholars and they come to their apologists. This is destroying our faith. This is destroying our faith. And the material is there all along, right? We open the Muslim sources. We read about entire chapters being forgotten. We read about large passages coming up missing because the only people who had them memorized died in battle. We read about verses being eaten by a sheep. We read about Muhammad's top scholars not being able to figure out which chapters were supposed to even be in the Quran. It looks like, if you take the Muslim sources seriously, it looks like one giant mess. And if you don't take the Muslim sources seriously, then you have no idea what happened. And so there's just no possible way for them to.
Yeah.
And so now we're seeing them try to modify their claim, right? And so now they're saying, oh, yes, there are some differences, but these are this or that, and that's the explanation. Not what you've been telling Muslims. You've been telling Muslims not one. I have piles of Muslim apologetics books and dogma books saying perfect preservation, not one dot of difference anywhere. And now they're trying to change it to explain it in terms of the Qira'at and Ahrufs and so on. But you could grant everything they're saying now. It still completely contradicts what they've been saying. And at the end of the day, they're not even going to be able to defend what they're saying now, even though they're trying to modify it, trying to take into account the evidence that's being presented. They're in trouble. Their entire case is falling apart, and that's why you've got people like Mohammed Hijab, Ali Dawa, Farid Responds, all the guys who sort of produced this latest fitna, I guess you could call it, and they're scrambling and they're in panic mode, and they should be, because there's no way around this. Their religion is collapsing all around them.
Well, David, I apologize, but it appears that people are not able to hear most of what you're saying, and I want hopefully the folks in a control room to be able to fix that. While they're doing this, why don't you tell us, Jay, your reaction to what Yasir Qadhi said, for instance. I mean, you've been in Spears Corner for many years. You had this issue to deal with the Quran for a number of years. Have you ever heard anyone make admission like this?
No, and I think this is what was so refreshing, as David said. When we first heard it, the first one that really came across it was Colin from Islamic Critique. He was the one that actually put up the 3 minute and 43 and so all of us were told about it. We quickly went to those channels. We went to Yasir Qadhi's channel. We went to Mohammed Hijab's channel, where you saw the entire interview. And I watched the entire interview of an hour and 45 minutes. And it was only the last 25 minutes that suddenly I just sat up and I realized, this is amazing. This guy is honest. I've never seen this kind of honesty. And I was excited, as David was excited, because this kind of honesty you just don't see. except in academia. And of course, he is an academic, and you can see the difficulty between those two different individuals who are representing two different sides of Islam. One, the traditional side, that's Mohammed Hijab, and the other, the academic side here in Western academia, who got his doctorate at Yale University. And you could see he recoiled when asked this question about these different qira'at. And he said very clearly, we don't talk about this in public. I have never, ever, he said, I have never, ever had a lecture on this. I would never have a lecture on this. Do not ask me this question. Take my class. Just take my class. And we'll do a deep dive. Which was fascinating because for those of us who are Christians who are listening to this, there is no such notion. I don't know of any seminary or any Bible school where there are certain things you just don't talk about in public. Since when? I've been to 6 different seminaries. I've talked in seminaries. I have had all kinds of questions thrown at me. There is no question we don't talk about. There's no red line. He talked about this red line beyond which they don't go, and because they have a respect for the Quran. Do we have a red line in Christianity? There's no line, and that's one reason that when he went to Yale, there are no lines there. There's no red line, and he suddenly came across questions that he had never ever had posed to him because he's been living in this bubble, and it is a bubble, and this bubble has been around for 1,000 years.
Right, and the way he talked about it, and maybe not necessarily this way in the 7 minutes, but overall, over the course of the 25 minutes, he almost made a distinction between the Eastern form of Islam and the Western form of Islam. And it's kind of hilarious when he keeps talking about taking his class. It's almost like I'm going to talk like an Eastern traditional Muslim, but when you take my class, I'll be a Western Muslim and I'll cross that red line.
He made 3 categories there. I don't know if you heard them. He says, those who are new to this, those who are initiates, I guess he's talking about converts, we don't even talk about it. If you're an intermediate student, then we have a respect that we don't go beyond. We don't allow them to ask these questions. But if you are an advanced student, if you take my class, then you do a deep dive, and look what he said next. And that's when the problems begin.
Right.
And I just started clapping. I said, exactly, that's when the problems begin. Because that's what happened to you at Yale University back in 1995, 25 years ago, when you took a deep dive where there was no red line and you didn't know what to do. And remember what Muhammad asked him? Well, did you have a crisis of faith? No. This was not a crisis of faith. This was a crisis of knowledge. He made a distinction there.
Big
and
difference.
Then he went into this mantra. I am absolutely convinced that this is the speech of Allah, that this is the word of God, that it has been preserved, that it has been guarded. What is he talking about? He's talking about chapter 10, verse 15. He's talking about chapter 18, verse 27. He's talking about chapter 15, verse 9. Because the Quran makes those claims. And he's falling back on that mantra. He's falling back on what he has always known. He's falling back on where he's comfortable. And that's that crisis of faith that he will not go beyond. He cannot dare admit that there is a crisis of faith going on. And that crisis of faith David's talking about, that's the crisis of faith that's now happening on the internet. That's the crisis of faith that happened with Mohammed Hijab back in 2016. That's the crisis of faith. It really is a crisis of faith. We don't have this problem in Christianity. This is unique to Islam. It's unique to these claims. And it's not their fault. They have no other way but to go because it's in the Quran. The Quran makes those claims. They've got to. Therefore, they have no wiggle room. They've got to. There's nowhere they can go. So I feel sorry for Muslims. And for those Muslims who are listening to me, I feel absolutely sorry for you. Because the Quran is very clear that he will preserve his word. And you cannot change one word. You cannot change one letter.
Absolutely. We have a couple of them that are asking hilarious questions, which we'll get to them. I just want you to relax. And you want water or anything like that? Because you're getting...
I get excited by this because we've been working on this for at least 4 years now.
So, folks, are we able to get good sound from David? David, you want to add anything?
You want to do a test? Check one. Check one. How's that?
There you go. There you go. So keep talking, brother. David, you've done a number of videos on this. What kind of feedback did you get?
Well, it was interesting when I started making the videos, when I started making the recent batch of videos, because keep in mind, as Jay pointed, we've been talking about this stuff for years. You have the people who are kind of who are kind of manuscript based. They're pointing to differences in the manuscripts and differences in current editions of the Quran today. Some people are saying the sound is still bad. Check. Saying muffled. Check one. You guys gotta plug the wire in. Check one.
Guys, it's hilarious, man. I mean, they're going into a meltdown over your volume, bro. I don't know what's going on here.
I think they want to hear what he's saying. But Ali, we can hear fine. I'm not sure why they can't hear, because it's coming in very clear to us here in the studio.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very clear. We can hear it.
Say something more, David.
Check one. Check one. They're telling the people in the chat are telling me it's my problem, guys. If they're hearing me clear, if Al Fadi and Jay are hearing me clear, that's on their end.
Especially if Al Fadi with this hit cover, I still can hear him clear. So.
Check one. Hey, wait for Mohammed Hijab to come in and say, Allah has spoken by silencing and muting this kafir.
Yeah, probably. Probably he might end up saying something like that.
Okay, they say they can follow your lips.
Yeah, just that's
so
good. They know sign language. Keep
David,
going.
and they will hear and understand you.
Yeah, and they're saying I sound far away. I'm wondering if they're actually picking up the audio from the studio, hearing it a long way away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably. So keep talking, brother. Continue with your thoughts.
Who, me?
Yeah.
They can hear you,
Okay.
David. You just found a little bit muffled. They can hear you now.
All right. So, basically, we've been telling people for years, we've been telling Muslims for years, their claim is false. Yeah, Jack Nicholson says your voice comes from the mic of Al Fadi's studio. So they're saying that they're hearing me because you guys are hearing me and my sound is coming through your microphones.
Right now.
Yeah.
Okay, they're working on it. Keep talking, David.
All right, guys, they'll work on it. I'll go ahead and talk, and they'll get that taken care of at some point. So here's the situation: you have people like us, and we've been telling Muslims for many years, "Hey, guys, your sources are filled with stories about changes in the Quran, and your manuscripts are filled with differences, and you have different versions of the Quran all around the world, and so you guys got some problems with your narrative." But Muslims think we're liars. We're just liars. We make things up, and they thought that their scholars could actually answer these things. Well, what happens when Yasir Qadhi comes on and he basically admits, no, we can't answer these things? Well, then, if Yasir Qadhi, who's been dealing with this, if Yasir Qadhi, the man who literally wrote the book on the sciences of the Quran, if he is acknowledging, guys, I can't answer this stuff. Maybe if you take an entire course, I can help you understand the problem more. But at the end of the day, I don't really have an answer that I can share with you, and that's why I need everyone to stay in the dark. Gosh, yeah. I mean, you've just said everything we've been telling you about the history of the Quran for all these years is complete, utter, total deception and nonsense. And so Muslims started leaving Islam, started saying that they were having doubts, started attacking these people, and then, of course, you have Mohammed Hijab deleting the footage. You have Yasir Qadhi keeping the footage but deleting the comments. Then Yasir Qadhi takes it down. Mohammed Hijab also takes it down. Too late. We already had all of this stuff. But in the comments of the videos, you saw it. The first couple of videos that come out, Muslims are still maintaining perfect preservation right down to the letter. And now, when I put out a video, there just aren't a lot of Muslims maintaining perfect preservation right down to the letter. It's more rare now. So there's been this massive shift just over the past couple of months in what Muslims believe. So this is one of the most amazing times in history here.
Yeah.
Let me just say something also, that just to follow on what David was saying. We have always heard, and this is something for you, David, and also for Al Fadi, we have always got it in the neck from a lot of people saying polemics don't work, that don't use polemics because this is not Christ-like, this is not at all pleasing to the Lord. And yet it is because of polemics that this crisis is going on in Islam. Had we not really pushed this issue, had we not gone public, had we not filmed it, had we not forced the issue years ago, as you're saying, David, this interview would not have happened two and a half months ago.
That is true. Absolutely.
Polemics do work because polemics is one of the only vehicles we have left to us to actually confront these two issues. And I know I get mocked for saying this: the book and the man, the book and the man. If you confront the book, if you confront the man, you're going to get reaction like this. And it's because of the fact that we did confront the Quran, we did confront the Qira'at, we did confront the Ahruf. Dan Brubaker has been confronting the Razm. We haven't even got to the Razm yet. That, from an academic standpoint, that is even more dangerous. But as far as this is concerned, the Qira'at and the Ahruf is on the populist level is by far the most damaging. And I didn't understand this. Hatun had to help me out with this. Hatun Tash, who was the one that really pushed this issue back in 2014, 2015. She was the first one to say, Jay, don't, you're too academic. Look from a populist level. What is the most damaging thing from a populist level? It's that there is more than one Quran. Because every Muslim is told this since knee-high to a grasshopper, that there is only one Quran, it is preserved, it is guarded, that there is not any difference, any word or any letter, as Yasir Qadhi has been saying over and over again. So has Shabirali been saying this over and over again. And if every Muslim has been brought up with this, has been weaned on and milked and weaned on this, then you can understand how suddenly showing up not just one, not two, not just seven, as many as 30 different Qurans, official Qurans, that will destroy everything they've heard about this book. The notion that these were also written by men, and each one has a name attached to it, and each one of those names, when you open it up and look at the pages, there's as many as 93,000 differences within just the first 23 we've looked at. When you hear those kind of statistics, when you realize, well, this is not what we've been told. This is not what we've been weaned on. This is not what we have put our faith in. And of course, this idea that this has been around, this is not something that's new as well, because this was introduced in the 11th century. It was introduced immediately after Ibn Mujahid came up with his 7 and then his 21. Once he had the 21 listed, and Al-Jazari then came up in the 15th century with another 3 and another 6, making 9. When that was introduced in the 15th century, by that time it was not only seen as divine, these 30, but also that these first 10 were from the time of Muhammad himself.
Exactly. I mean, it's like mere men are deciding what was revealed to Muhammad. And if what was revealed to Muhammad is 7, like the tradition says, where did this additional 3 come from? Where did the other 4 come from? I mean, the problem keeps compounding, and yet our Muslim friends are not even the least interested in discussing the issue. Like one of them listed here saying, I don't see any problem with the Qira'at and Ahruf. Really? As-Sayuti saw 40 problems.
Yeah. I want people to look at what we have here on the table right here. Take a look at these. Here are 7 Qira'ats that I just bought in the last 2 weeks here in the United States. I bought them online at alquranonline.com. I was told about this by Dr. Bernie Powers. He said, you can buy it here in the United States. These came from Illinois. These just arrived a week ago. You can get them. Here you have Ibn Amir. I just want to show you something right here. This is Ibn Amir right here.
Damashqi. He's from Damascus.
Ibn Amir.
Yeah.
He is from Damascus. He wrote this supposedly in 736. Muhammad died in 632. He wrote this Qira'at over 100 years after Muhammad. This is the earliest of all the Qira'at. These are just 7 of the 10. These are just 7 of the 10 that are the most important. I'm sorry, there's 3 that are also from the narrators. What's fascinating to me is if you take just these 2 right here, this is Hafs, and on this side we have Warsh. Look at these 2 right here. Warsh here, that's popular all over North Africa, and Hafs, that is popular now all over the world. Just take a look at those 2, and there are 5,000 differences just between these 2 books that I have in my hand today. Now, why is it Muslims have not told this before? Why is it that Muslims have not been told this before? Why is it Yasir Qadhi and Shabirali never told their Muslim students, even the ones who took the deep dive, that if you're going to claim that there's only one Quran and there's no difference between any word or any letter, then what are you going to see when you just hold up 2 of them, just 2 out of the 30, and we can already find 5,000 differences. When you look at all 30, we have 93,000 differences. Has Shabirali or Yasir Qadhi looked at those 93,000 differences? Have they done any study on it? Has any Muslim even looked and seen what Dr. Bernie Powers has done in Australia? Because he has found 12 different variants, 12 different categories, 12 different families of variants, and he has them all listed there. This is, why is it we're doing this? Why are the Christians and the secular people doing it? Why are the Europeans and the Australians and the Americans doing it, and not the Muslims themselves? So can you understand then why there's this crisis of faith? The crisis of faith is because they have been lied to and lied to and lied to their whole life, and now it's coming back to flip back and really hurt them at the very foundations of the claims that they've been making, not just for the last 20 years, not just for the last 30 years, for the last 1,000 years. This was all begun in 936, became divinely origined in the 11th century in 1053, and now we're in the 21st century in 2020, and finally 2 of the best scholars in the world today, in the Muslim world today, finally admitted it. both and on May 19th for Dr. Shabir Ali and on June 8th for Dr. Yasir Qadhi. I was hoping that we would finally get an eradication of these claims, but no, they're still coming back and saying that it's complete. They're still coming back and saying that it's preserved. They're still coming back and saying that it is guarded by Allah himself. No, it's not guarded by Allah himself. It's obvious to me that this is as man-made as any other book.
Yeah, so Salih Abdullahi, and by the way, Jai, I think we need Salih in our Discord to have a one-on-one talk with him. Salih Abdullahi is saying, so what? One Quran, different versions. Hey, Salih, it's one God, three distinct persons. Thank you for agreeing with the Trinity. So how do you respond to that? One Quran, different versions.
I think one of the greatest things I would say is one Quran, but not only just one Quran, different versions. What you're going to find is you're going to say that these different versions have different beliefs, have different practices, have different doctrines. Now that we haven't even got into, to looking and doing a comparative. We're doing that here in the studio, and we'll be doing some of these, and we'll be giving them out. Because we need to let Muslims know that this Quran that they have here, this Hafs Quran, is not only it was not only a Quran that's from the wrong area. This Quran is from Kufa. This Quran should not be the Quran that was chosen. This is the Quran that was actually introduced in 796 by a guy named Kufa, a guy named Hafs. But it was chosen in 1924 from the wrong city, the wrong country, hundreds of miles away, and hundreds of years too late. The Quran they should have chosen is this one right here.
Ibn Kathir.
Here we go.
The
This
one
is the
from
guy.
Mecca.
This is the one they should have chosen. This guy is from Mecca. This guy is a Qurayshi.
Nafi' from Medina.
Nafi. They should have chosen Ibn Kathir. They should have chosen Abu Ja'far. Any of those three of the 10, only 3 of the 10 are from the Qurayshi area.
Apparently, he didn't consider those to be divinely inspired. So, I'm going to ask a question of our control room. Guys, close your ears. Is the second video clip available? The answer is no. So here's what I'm going to say. There was another clip. Remember, Yasir Qadhi kept talking about a hole in the narrative. Now, there was another video where he talked about why did Uthman burn the Qurans of his day and kept only the one that he chose to be the accurate one, the one that was written in a Qurayshi dialect. At least the one he collected. And Yasir Qadhi's answer is that to preserve the holiness of the Quran, instead of leaving it or trashing it or shredding it, they burned it. But that's an interesting thought, David. Is that really how you respect holy books?
Well, I actually understand this. But wait, do we want to do an audio check now?
Yeah, check.
Check one. Check one.
It's okay. They can get over it.
All right. So yeah, well, I mean, in Yasir Qadhi's clip, when he said that no, this is the way you respectfully dispose of Qurans, because you don't want to throw it in a garbage dump, you don't want to do something like that, and then so they burned them, and he says we think of book burnings as sacrilege, like you're insulting them, but they're not doing that. Well, that's true. I don't think that Uthman was trying to disrespect them, but our claim is not Uthman was trying to disrespect the books. He was trying to disrespect them. Our claim is he's burning them to cover up all the differences and burning them to cover up all the evidence. He's deliberately destroying evidence. You're not trying to respect the book. I want to dispose of these respectfully. It's here are all these different Qurans and all these different manuscripts, and I want to destroy it all so that people are not aware of the differences and can never go back to them. And so it's just very, very, very strange situation. I mean, just imagine if we had anything like that in Christianity. If we had, at the Council of Nicaea, they gathered up all the Bibles and they picked one and then they burned everything else, we would never hear the end of this from Muslims. They would say, you see, this is clear proof, indisputable proof that the Bible has been corrupted, that it was deliberately changed by later generations and so on. And yet we have nothing like that. It would have been impossible in Christianity because you never had a situation where anyone was in a position to control the Bible in that way. But you do have that in Islam. You had a central authority who could order people to hand over their Qurans and could destroy the manuscripts if he wanted, and could put out his own official version if he wanted, and could suppress rebellion against this if he wanted. And that's exactly what you find. And we find it from the people who tell us perfect preservation right down to the letter, never a difference anywhere. And the whole thing seems so insane and idiotic you wonder what kind of religion produces this level of delusion, where all of their sources announce the corruption, all of their current manuscripts show the corruption, and the text that they supposedly can trace their book back to was the result of burning all of the manuscripts that contradict it. And it's just, how do you defend this? I mean, it's on a level of complete delusion and insanity. And this is the argument that many Muslims believe is their best evidence for Islam,
Right.
and that should
Right.
tell us all something about Islam.
Amen. And first and last, I was thinking the exact same thing. Folks, do we have an extra mic where we can maybe try to put it in front of the...
Did that.
Yeah, so we tried it, bro. We tried
Go
it.
one step further. What
So
David
go
is
ahead.
saying is interesting, because for the Muslims, they have to go back to Al-Bukhari, volume 6, book number 461, hadith number 509 and 510. They've got to go back to their own traditions to know why this burning took place. And you can see very clearly that the burning took place because there were three groups of Muslims from Kufa, from Basra, and from Damascus, who were up there in Azerbaijan, who were going to war against the Azerbaijani, along with the Qurayshi Muslims from Mecca and Medina. They heard them speaking different Qurans. They heard them speaking and reciting different references to the Quran, different dialectical differences, as Shabir Ali says, while they were in Azerbaijan. Hudayfa comes back down and he tells us to Uthman, and he says to Uthman, we must not do like the Christians and Jews. What is it the Christians and Jews have done? They have different Bibles, they're saying.
Right.
So therefore we have to have one Quran. So let's get rid, and so you must get Zayd ibn Thabit to bring back Hafsa's copy and then to write it in the Qurayshi dialect. Once he's written the Qurayshi dialect, he then gives it to Uthman, and Uthman sends it to 5 cities: Basra, Kufa, Damascus, Medina, and Mecca. And then he sends a reader to each one of those cities to make sure that it retains that Qurayshi dialect, and he destroys and burns all the others, as David was saying. So what's fascinating to me, if you're burning them, that means you're burning manuscripts, you're burning parchments, you're burning an object that can be burned. You can't burn a recitation.
That's true. And then another thing, Islam Critique asked an excellent question earlier. Why would they have to burn something that is so rare and precious, which is the leather itself? They could have just washed it off.
If it's animal skin, that's called a palimpsest.
Right.
And they wash it off all the time. The Sanam
Which basically
palimpsest.
leads me to the palimpsest. One of the theories about why we have thousands of these parchments that were discovered at the Great Mosque in Sana'a is that they were being used, technically speaking, for learning,
School text.
teaching, but they decided to store them away. Why would you store it away? I mean, that would have been a perfect example of burning something that is not considered to be Quran.
So here you have a difficulty because Muslims have not answered us on this.
Right.
And Muslims need to start asking these disturbing questions. These are the holes in the narratives that Yasir Qadhi was referring to. And he says, they're looking at us like an emperor with no clothes. Did you hear him say that? Yes, we are. You don't have any clothes. You're making claims that you cannot support. This is a claim you need to make. You need to there's a number of holes that come here. That's the first one. Secondly, how is it that Muhammad received 7 recitations, 7 different dialects, when he never left Mecca and Medina? How did he know these dialects from Kufa, Basra, and Damascus? He never went to those cities. How would he suddenly know those different dialects? That's another question that no one's really answering. More than that, if these are the 7 that he received, why is it they only appear in the 8th century in 736 up to 805, from 736 up to 805, and of the 7 that appear, 5 of them are not from Mecca and Medina. They're from Kufa, they're from Basra, and they are from Damascus. So 3 of them are from Kufa alone, proving that these are the very ones that Uthman had burned, now suddenly appear in the 8th century. And these are the Holy 7. These are the ones that Ibn Mujahid, who never claimed that these were from Muhammad, who never claimed that they were divine. Within 1 century, by the 11th century, they now all come from Muhammad. They all are claimed to be divine. And that's why Yasir Qadhi and Shabir Ali are now making that claim 1,000 years later. They're hung-tied by their own claims. Right. And that's why Muslims need to shut down these claims and they need to stop making stop bragging about their Quran and realize that their Quran is nothing more than a man-made document, probably begun at the time of the late 7th century, and then started to be manipulated and started to put into a text because of the dots and the vowels. And that's why the 736 would be the first of these Qurans. That's the one we have right here. that I have here in black. And because of the fact that there were so many different variations, so many different derivatives, Ibn Mujahid had a problem that he tried to fix in 936. And what he fixed in 936 only exacerbated it, because that became divine. That became divine edict. Once it became divine edict, it then got retracted back or redacted back to Muhammad's own lips. Once you made that mistake, then you better shut it down. No, they haven't shut it down, and they haven't shut it down for 1,000 years. And that's why I feel sorry for Muslims who are watching. I feel sorry for Yasir Qadhi, who has to support that. I feel sorry for Shabir Ali, who is still trying to defend that. You cannot defend the indefensible. Just stop defending it.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not doing a great job the way he is explaining some of these things. I mean, people can go and watch the show that he does on the Quran, Let the Quran Speak, and just hear for themselves. I mean, I have yet to see him to back any of his claims with clear resources and evidence. It's all just based on his own way of interpreting things. Now, that's all great, but you're talking about a book that's supposedly considered to be divine. Shouldn't you have enough evidence, physical, tangible evidence, to back up your way of explaining why we have differences? And now, I love his claim, the recent one, that he says, you know, maybe we don't have the exact written text, but we have the exact message. Now, that's a news, right? That's new.
And the message comes from what century? And the message was first put together in what time period? And the message was finally canonized by what person? Because I'm still asking, where is this Uthmanic recension they keep on talking about? Where is these 5 copies that were sent to those 5 cities? Mecca, Medina, Kufa, Basra, and Damascus. Give me even one. Just give me one. And don't give me 63 fragments that were finally put together by 719, of which 30 of them don't even exist from the 719 era. They do not even exist in the first century of Islam. This is the difficulty that Muslims are having. If the claims they make, they cannot support. And Shabir Ali, God bless him, he's a great man. I've engaged with him at least 6 times in the last 20 years. But he needs to stop making these claims, and he needs to start bringing the Quran back down to earth again. It is not divine. It is not from Uthman. It is not from Muhammad, and it's certainly not from God.
That's right. And David, you know, before we conclude, one recent event that took place, and you talked about it, is I think it was Ali Dawa, I believe, who talked about killing the apostates or something to that extent. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, so in the fallout for the meltdown, in the fallout after the meltdown, so you had the holes in the narrative, you had all of these Muslims trying to cover up the evidence. That didn't work, and then they started lashing out in every direction. And with Mohammed Hijab, he started attacking people's wives, so not the apologists, attacking their wives, posting nasty comments, posting their pictures online, insulting them. And after that, Ali Dawa posted a video specifically saying to the apostate prophet, who's an ex-Muslim atheist, that in an Islamic state he would be killed, and defending the idea of killing ex-Muslims like yourself. And so he's basically saying, hey, we are multiplying, we're winning followers, and once we take over, yes, we are going to kill you. And why that's interesting is it's kind of a parallel. It's kind of a parallel to the situation with the differences in the Qur'ans, where we spend years telling Muslims, hey, your sources actually talk over and over and over again about all these differences in your Qur'ans. It certainly hasn't been perfectly preserved. We spend years telling Muslims that, and then they finally admit it. And turns out they were simply being deceived by their leaders all along. Well, you have a parallel situation where for years we've been telling people, hey, the penalty for apostasy in Islam is death. The Muhammad and his followers would execute people for leaving Islam. And people say, no, you're lying. Well, Ali Dawa just announced it, and Mohammed Hijab seemed to support it. And even Adam Saleh, who's a popular Muslim YouTuber with almost 5 million subscribers, said Allahu Akbar in response to a video saying that, yes, once Muslims take over, ex-Muslims will be exterminated. Yeah. And so it's kind of, notice all of this is kind of happening at once, right? All these things that Muslim apologists have been lying about for years are now being exposed. And so it's just, it's really, really an awesome time. Wait, people are saying the audio is fixed.
Yeah, you've been saved.
That's good. Only took you David. 50 minutes.
Yeah, your career has been saved, David. So it's kind of interesting, David. I was thinking the exact same thing. Isn't that what happened throughout the history of Islam itself during supposedly the life of Muhammad? Anytime he received a pushback, somehow the religion of peace behaved in a non-peaceful way?
Yeah, there's a problem now that I can't hear Al-Fadi.
Okay, well, that's fine. How about you? Can you talk, Jay? Let's see if
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean,
hear
you
you.
can just look at Muhammad's. If you look at the traditions, what happened with him in Medina when he moved to Medina in 622? You have Asma bin Marwan, who wrote poetic verse against.
That's
him.
right.
And he said almost immediately that he said, "Who's going to take care of this woman for me?" And so Marwan, one of his disciples, Ubayd, goes that night and stabs her through the heart while she's suckling her child. She has 6 children. Comes back the next morning, tells Muhammad about this, and Muhammad says, "Great are you for what you have done for your prophet." If that's the example of those who, and all her only crime was she wrote poetic verse. She mocked Muhammad. She was from Medina. He was not from Medina. He had just moved there. If that is the example, then you look and see what he did to the Jews who would not support him in the Battle of Badr and the Battle of Uhud and the Battle of the Trenches. And finally, the last remaining Jewish tribes, after throwing out the other Jews, the last remaining Jewish tribe, the Banu Qurayza, in 627, he takes all 800 men, slits their throat, takes the women as concubines for his men, and the children as slaves. Now, this you can find in Ibn Hisham, you can find this in Al-Waqidi, you can find this in Al-Buhari, you can find this in Al-Tabari. I've given you 4 sources. I'm not just making this up. If that's the example of their prophet, what he did to those who opposed him, then can you then understand why Muslims are now using that today? Because he is their model. And this idea, this notion that Islam is a religion of peace, just look at Muhammad and tell me if this was a man of peace. He is not a man of peace. He is not relevant for the 21st century. He wasn't even relevant for the 7th century.
And you know what I love about what's happening right now since June, of this year, is that there is this attempt to hide the truth, just like Uthman burning a Quran in 1924. They sank Qurans. Ibn Mujahid deciding which Qurans basically are to be used. And whenever there is a critical attempt to criticize Islam, the Prophet of Islam, or anything about its teachings, there is all this violent reaction. And we're witnessing it right now as we speak. I mean, from June until now, there has been so many reactions, including go and kill the infidels.
Yeah, and I think this is sad because this is what happens when you get someone, you corner somebody. When you corner a dog in the corner, what do? They start barking, they start biting. And I think what we're seeing is that type of reaction. But Islam has always done that, hasn't it, for the last 1,400 years? Just look at their history. Look and see what happens when they're persecuted. And then compare it and look and see what Christianity does when it's cornered and when they're persecuted. In fact, Christianity grows faster under persecution than any other time. We do not fight and we do not come out biting and fighting. Why? Because Christ does not allow us to do that. Christ said very clearly the one time he could have used a defense in the Garden of Gethsemane, and there he was being arrested. Peter cut off the ear of the servant. Jesus turned towards Peter and says, "Put away your sword. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword." That's in Matthew 26, verse 52. And I'm so glad that I have that as my paradigm today. And that's the example we have with Jesus Christ versus what Muhammad did with Asma bin Marwan. Remember, it wasn't just Asma bin Marwan. There were 25 individuals that he had assassinated for doing the very same thing. And yet he wasn't even from Medina. He was a guest there. And so if this is the example of their model, their paradigm, and Jesus is the example of our model, our paradigm, can you then understand why when we say that we are a religion of peace, that we follow a man of peace, that we have not only the example of Jesus Christ to support us, just look at the last 2,000 years and look and see when Christianity has grown the fastest, not when we're in power, but when we're in weakness.
Amen. Not so sure. David, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Any last thoughts? Are you doing anything about this issue or any additional work on this in this regard?
Oh, the work is not going to end because the more they try to bury the info, the more damage they do, right? I mean, I probably wouldn't have made more than a single video on this topic if Muslims hadn't tried to cover it up, right? In other words, there's what's called the Streisand effect. And the Streisand effect is basically the more you try to cover something up, the more people want to look into it and see, hey, what's going on there? So I probably wouldn't have gone beyond Colin's video, Islam Critique's initial video. Probably would have made one video dealing with that because I was actually at that time more interested in what Shabir Ali was saying. but after Hijab cut that part out, then I was like, oh wait, they're trying to cover something up. Maybe I need to look at the longer version of this. And then after that, of course, Yasir Qadhi deleted, took down the comments on his video and filed a false copyright complaint with YouTube because I had posted some clips of it by that time. And so by then it was like, oh wait, they are in full damage control mode here. So you'd think, okay, you're going to take the hit, you're going to let things fizzle out, and yes, you did some damage, but these things happen in your religion. And that's what you'd think. But no, now they're in just absolute full meltdown mode. And so the more we come after the book, the more they seem to panic and throw tantrums. And so this is not going to stop. So tonight at 8:00 p.m., I've got Abdullah Samir and the Apostate Prophet on my channel. We're going to go through some of Mohammed Hijab's recent tantrums. And this guy's just, been losing his mind. Did not expect anything this bad from him this quickly. And then probably another day or two, go through the Ali Dawa clips live with some ex-Muslims. But it's kind of, they seem to be trying to draw attention through their antics away from the holes in the narrative. But guys, it's just a little too late now. It's too late. You can't get away. The truth is out there. Muslims are looking into it. Muslims are leaving Islam as a result of it. This is sending them into even more of a panic mode to cover up this information, to draw people's attention away. And it's just not working. The more tantrums they throw, the more information they try to cover up, the more things get out. And it seems like they just don't know what else to do, right? Islam historically focuses on silencing opposition by killing people, chopping off heads in Muslim controlled areas, and in other areas of the world by lying and heaping abuse on people and insulting them until they, you put them in a position of silence. And those kind of are their only methods for dealing with problems when problems arise. And so now problems are arising. There are holes in the narrative. The entire system is melting down. People are leaving Islam. And what can they do about it? All they know is to keep attacking and keep flipping out, and it's just not helping. And they don't know what else to do. And so it's an epic dumpster fire situation for them. And it's just getting started. That's the part that's simultaneously sad and yet hilarious. It's hilarious because they're being very mean about it, and so you can't be too sad for them.
When you cut a portion of your video and then you delete it completely, Jay, how is that going to impact also the type of work you're doing already?
Yeah, now, we've been working on this much longer than the rest of you because of the fact that we have always gone to the book and the man. This is my phrase, and I get mocked for it all the time. But I really do feel that you've got to confront the book, you've got to confront the man, you've got to confront the Quran, you've got to confront Muhammad. So what we're doing now is we're going and we're looking at the 7th century, and we're debunking not only Muhammad, we're debunking Mecca, we're debunking the word Islam, the word Muslim, and we're debunking the Quran, those 5 areas. So we'll continue to do that. We're already coming up with some brand new material. Shadi Nasser is coming out. He was supposed to have had a book out this month. He's put it back to October, I think, because of all this furore. And he's waiting for the furore to drop down because he has some even more damaging material. Dr. Shadi Nasser is from Harvard University. He was the one that wrote that pivotal book in 2012 that Colin has been using, that I've been using, to look and explain what the Qira'at is and look and see where the names are and what numbers. He's the one that actually informed us that there was a lot more than 30. There could be as many as 700 to 800 of these Qurans that existed between the 8th and 10th century. So we have an awful lot of material
to go. He's a scholar.
Go.
He's doing his research.
And then we're going to move into the manuscript material. The manuscript material is what I've been aching to get into. We're going to shut down the Tübingen manuscript. We're going to shut down the Birmingham folio. We're going to shut down also the Topkapi manuscript, the Petropolitan manuscript, the Husseini manuscript, and also the Sana'a manuscript. These are the ones we have yet to really get into. That's yet to come. Hold on, people. I know people have been asking me, when are you going to get into this? Because that is more the academic argument concerning the razm, concerning the skeletal text, concerning the consonantal text. And that is from the 7th to 8th century. All the Qira'at materials from the 8th, 9th, and 10th century. I really want to get back to the 7th century again. So an awful lot yet to come. You people who are watching us, there's an awful lot you're going to be hearing. The Qira'at is damaging on the popular level. Wait till you hear what we have now on the manuscript level. That's going to be a lot more damaging from an academic level.
And I will be remiss if I don't remind people of this new fabulous channel, Variant Quran by Dr. Dan Brubaker. Everybody should go and even subscribe and partner with him also, because he definitely is doing an amazing job by just showing usually one image, maybe a couple of images of the same manuscript most of the time.
And I want to thank David. David, thank you for really getting Dan, fire underneath Dan to get that out there. You've done a great job. You've helped him an awful lot. Dan is one of the few that I know who is not only an academic, but is willing to put his face above the parapet and actually go public with it and stick to his academic
and he's sharing research. He's not attacking anyone whatsoever. Anyone can go. It's a safe channel for Muslims to go. He won't say a single negative word. He's just showing you manuscripts of the Quran that exist. He'll tell you where he got it, the image from, where is this image or the original manuscript exists. So people need to take this.
And he's not just talking a few. He's
seriously.
talking over 4,000 of these that he has found.
Yeah, and I like what David says the other day about partnering with him. He got plenty of images that he can work for the rest of his life. We just need to stand behind him.
Did you guys see the? Did you see when he was responding to questions? I mean, responding to comments, and the Muslim said, "You've been refuted," and his response was just, "Refute what? Refute what? I'm showing you pictures of differences in Quran. What are you refuting?" Yeah.
To show you an image. How can you refute an image? It's an image of something that exists. Yeah.
I think what the problem is they look at the title and they don't even look at the video. When you look at the title, they say, "Oh, you've been refuted because we don't like what you're saying." And that's why people, when you see what he's put up there, look and read and watch the whole video, because this is material that is unique. It is the first time no Muslim has done what he has done. Muslims have had 1,300 years to work on these images. Why in the world had no one done what Daniel Brubaker has been done in just the last 10 years?
Absolutely. And David, I know you're getting ready, brother, for your live stream. I don't want to hold you much longer. Thank you so much, by the way, for making time for us. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but really to the defense of our team, they're doing a great job here. They remodeled everything. And they told me in advance that we're gonna find out today how it's gonna work. So I'm sure there's a lot of lessons learned throughout this.
Technical difficulties happen when you're going live.
So thank you, brother, for all that you do, and Jay, thank you as always. And you and I are gonna continue recording, of course, and people are gonna enjoy that. And David, of course, we can't wait to bring you back here to the studio. Thank you, everyone. God bless. And we will see you possibly tomorrow on another live stream, and we'll see what we can do to try to announce it for you beforehand. God bless. Take care.